Winter Bells by Penstroke. Chapter 8. Lies of the Bells. Go! 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 Lumberjack wore a big grin as the chanting voices surrounded him, mixing with the gulping sound coming from his throat. Then, with a triumphant thud, he slammed the empty mug back onto the table, next to his equally empty plate. Cheers rang out, backs were slapped, and bits changed hooves as Lumberjack bested another pony. But still, his opponent, the son of a fellow tree cutter, continued to try and chug at his hot chocolate. He was just trying to finish and was doing valiantly. He, however, was doomed for failure. He tipped his head too far back, tear, and soon the young challenger fell to the floor, causing a roar of laughter to fill Donut Joe's shop. And none were laughing louder than Lumberjack. "Ha ha 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 ha! You see, this why you don't challenge Lumberjack, 'cause Lumberjack always wins." He turned and waved his hoof at Donut Joe. "Another round!"
Sorry, Jack, but that was the last call, remember?
Normally, Donut Joe's shop would have already been closed, like most other places in the capital. This, however, was a tradition. All the ponies who stood wood and trees at Canterlot came together for Hearthwarming Eve. They came to eat donuts, drink hot chocolate, and generally brag about anything and everything they could brag about. They told tall tales of how many trees they had cut down, the largest tree they had cut down, and how much money they made in Canterlot that year. And every year, Donut Joe would keep his doors open just for them, enjoying their company and generous tips. But the party had to end sooner or later. "Ah! You are too good to us, Joe! You stay open late, then stop us before we make our stomachs burst! Let's hear it for Donut Joe, best donut maker in Equestria! Huzzah!" Cheers went out in the donut shop for its owner before ponies began to rummage for bits, then to pay their part of the tab. Lumberjack would do the same, but he helped the young stallion off the floor for us. Then he put a hoof around the colt's neck, and pointed at one of the older ponies in the rowdy shop. "Swiftsure, you got good son here, good head and strong back, but he needs to learn not to swing at trees that are too big at him. And number 3, Jack, he very victory, isn't that right?" Tears and laughs of agreement filled the donut shop, making Lumberjack laugh again as the younger stallion pulled himself away and rushed to the bathroom to puke. After that, tabs were paid and the end of year celebration for Equestria's holiday tree and wood sale fires were over. They began to file outside, and at first all walked down the street in a large group, continuing to sing, cheer, and be merry in the chill of the heartwarming Eve night. But as they passed intersections, chunks of the group broke off to head down the streets that would take them back to their beds. Eventually, Lumberjack too had to depart, making a few final jokes before making a left turn as the rest of the group continued down the same street. The chatter of his friends fell away to a calm silence of winter. The only sound to reach Lumberjack's ears was the sound of his hooves crunching in the snow, a gentle rhythm of his own breathing. He could hear bells. At first, it was the tolling of a local bell tower as it announced the hour. But the voices of those bells faded. He could hear the melody coming from the bells in towers of Canterlot. They were playing heartwarming hymns. Lumberjack couldn't help but smile and began to hum along with the familiar carols. As a heavy-set pony, he could never really be light on his feet. He was, however, content to sway his head with the rhythm and enjoy the calm. Yes, he was big, and he was boisterous, but he was also a tree color, a stallion of the woods. He knew how to appreciate the quiet, serene melodies, be they songs of nature at peace, or the hymns of his nascent founding.
Warm by the fire, it's true wherever you find love, it feels like Christmas.
Turning a corner, Lumberjack trotted down the street, and they began to carry him away from the castle and the melody of its bells. It was empty, as many streets were. The snow, however, looked as if it had been recently disturbed. Still, Lumberjack's mind dismissed it. There was no reason somebody else wouldn't be out and about. He began to playfully wonder who it could have been. Maybe it was a stallion taking a present to some sweet mare. Maybe it was a father coming home from a long business trip to his family. Maybe it was... If there had been any other pony out and about, Lumberjack may not have taken notice of a small yelp of pain. But in the silent solitude of the street, the small sound stood out enough for him to stop and look down. Next to him were some low-cut evergreen bushes, which separated a cafe's patio seating from the sidewalk. This alone would not have been significant, but Lumberjack had seen something. He had seen what looked like a teal disappear beneath the shrubbery.
What is this?
Lumberjack could not ask himself, as he turned and stepped closer to the bushes. He lowered himself down and looked beneath the branches. A pair of eyes, glowing in the light of the street lamps, looked back, but then they were gone. There was a flash of movement, and the black thing was darting around the bushes, trying to escape.
Oh, come here, kitty, kitty. You don't have to be afraid, kitty, kitty. Lumberjack, we'll get you some warm milk.
Lumberjack's sweet words stood out in stark contrast to the fact. He was tromping through the shrubs in the hot pursuit, the furred creature like an Ursa Major through the forest. Still, the thing beneath the bushes was quick. It managed to stay ahead of him. It darted and crawled beneath the needles of evergreens. But Lumberjack didn't relent. He chased the creature towards the stone wall of a quilting shop that bordered the cafe. Then, when the creature was cornered, he reached his hoof up and halted up into the air.
Ah, you don't have to be afraid, little kitty. Lumberjack will never.
He then looked at the thing, cocking his eyebrows in confusion at the black, struggling filly he was now holding upside down.
You are not cat.
It wasn't true. He wasn't right. It wasn't true. It wasn't right. It wasn't true. He wasn't right. Azula always lies.
Azula always lies.
Nyx recited those words to herself over and over again as she ran, trying to deny the tears coming from her eyes and the fear growing in her heart. Hearing that shining armor had been keeping secrets hurt. Hearing what he thought he was trying to do to Twilight and the others hurt even more. But nothing hurt more than what he had said about Twilight. That Twilight only cared for her because of a spell. It was like the Children of Nightmare all over again. Spell Nexus, and all those who followed him respected and admired her because of the blessing. But the moment she removed the spell, they all turned their backs on her. They had all left the castle that day, leaving her to return to their lives and families. None of them truly cared for her. None of them were worried what would happen to her. Considering Filthy Rich is his wife, I think he was kind of glad to stay in the castle. That day, not a single soul stayed by her side. But that wasn't true about Twilight. No, it couldn't be. She wouldn't believe it. Still, the fear cheered on the back of her mind. What if Shining was right? What if the love and care Twilight had shown was because of a curse that was twisting her mind and heart? What would happen if that spell was lifted? Would Twilight make her leave? Like demons from some dark corner of creation, the memories came back. That night. That horrible night. Nyx screamed for Twilight, but Twilight didn't stop Celestia. She cried and begged, but Twilight didn't speak out. She pleaded for the mare she called Mother to save her, and she did nothing. But now, if Shining was right and the spell was lifted, it would be worse. Twilight wouldn't do nothing. Twilight knew Twilight would actively kick her out. Twilight would be seen under the influence of Children of Nightmare. She would have those cold, heartless eyes, and she would say words that would cut deeper than any dagger. All she wanted, the only thing she ever wanted, was to just stay with Twilight. The sharp bang of a bell snapped Nyx from her thoughts. She stumbled in the snow-covered streets, but managed to catch herself before she fell. She gasped deeply, Cassie the brush she didn't even know she had lost and began to look around. She hadn't been paying attention to where she was going. She'd just been running to run, and now she looked around. A sinking feeling began to settle in her stomach. She didn't recognize any of the streets or shops. She had run and run and run, and now she didn't know where she was. Another sharp bell sound made Nyx look up. It wasn't the bells of Canterlot Castle, though she could still hear them playing hymns in the distance. It was, instead, a smaller bell tower chiming out the hour. Still, Nyx began to glare at those bells, as if they had been playing along with the bells of the castle, as if they were more members of its torturous choir. A singing bell ringing doesn't make music. It's only when a bunch of different bells, big and small, come together that they can make music. They play the carols, and it's like the sky and wind are singing along. It's just like the heartwarming legend. Not one kind of pony could have made this kingdom. It was only when all three tribes worked together that Equestria was born. Different kinds, big and small, coming together to face adversity in the name of peace and harmony. Twilight's words from the previous night only made Nyx angrier. The hymns, the whole season, promised unity between ponies. It promised good times with family and friends. It promised warm reunions, laughter, and joy. It promised peace and harmony and the banishment of hatred. But all that seemed like a dream that would never come true. Tears poured down Nyx's cheeks as he glared at the bell tower, even as it fell silent. She wanted nothing more than to rip every bell out of every tower at Canterlot and throw them over the edge of the city. She wanted to make the last song they sang, the cacophony of them hitting the ground below. She wanted to make them stop. She wanted to make them stop singing those songs that promised things she never get to have. She wanted to stop them from preaching of happiness she would never get to enjoy unless she brainwashed every pony in Equestria. She wanted them to stop. She began to sink into snow and lifted her hose to cover her ears. But before she could, she began to hear something else. She gasped and looked behind her, ears standing erect. The sound was getting closer, and the louder it grew, the more Nyx's body tensed. It was some pony humming with the bells. The pony's voice was coming around from the corner of the nearby building. Fearing a repeat of what had happened on the stage's catwalks, Nyx scrambled to her hose. Her first instinct was to run, but the pony was too close. As she just ran down the street, whoever it was could see her. There was no time to run. She could only hide. She looked around for some place to conceal herself, but she saw only one option: a row of bushes. She didn't like the hiding spot one bit. It was reminding her too much of the bush in Neverfree, where she had begun her short life. She bit her lip, shut her eyes, and dove into the embrace of the evergreen shrubs, then fought the urge to jump back out into the street. She could only hear the humming for a while, but then came the sound of toes crunching in the snow. They were getting closer, and, as each step grew louder, it sounded more and more to Nyx, like the mouth of some great beast chewed on its bones. She stayed perfectly still, as if a single moment might give way at her hiding place. She didn't dare to breathe, even as her lungs began to burn with hunger for a fresh breath, even as the smallest peep might alert the pony to her presence. She had to stay alert. She had to stay quiet and wait for him to pass. Then she could